The final four of the Angle Dynasty League is here. Matchups are set and we are live. My name is Andrew. This is the Angle Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Welcome, because today we are here to discuss the drama, the chaos, and the constant injury news that is fantasy basketball playoffs. So we got playoffs actively going across three leagues that we publicize right now, and that's what we are here today to talk about. Joining me, one of my fellow Angle analysts, fresh off of his 28th birthday, or 29th birthday? 28th birthday? 28th birthday, yeah. That's right. You're my brother's age. Okay. Fresh off of his 28th birthday, Mitchell, how are you today, dude?
Pretty good, man. I was just telling you about my weekend. I hit par on one of the hardest holes at the first course that I ever done with you on my last birthday. So thank you for introducing me to golf, Andrew. And I also had Chubby Cattle, which is a Japanese barbecue that specializes in A5 Wagyu. So I'm rejuvenated. I'm ready to talk playoff basketball in terms of fantasy, and I'm just hyped to be here, man.
Yeah, nothing more rejuvenating than scoring well in golf and then quality meets afterwards. Very good stuff. Okay, so three leagues to talk about here. First is the Angle Redraft League. That's a 12-team league that took place on Yahoo. We will do that first. Second, we are going to cover where we are at right now in the auction draft version of Industry Pickup. Some exciting news in that one. And then we will discuss the Angle Dynasty League, which is currently at the final four teams remaining. So let's get it started with Yahoo. Okay, so what was this? A few weeks ago, this was around week 12 of the fantasy season. We kind of considered that around the halfway point. We did a review of all three of the leagues that we were going to discuss today. In that review, my team, the Jonte's Parlays, was in third place, and Mitchell's team is around where mine is currently right now, which is in ninth place. My team proceeded to literally lose since that video every single matchup that I was in. So it was a lot of 4-5 losses, which is why my record's only slightly below 500. But yeah, a brutal stretch of games after that video. This redraft league was very close. There was a lot of parity, as you could see from the playoffs teams. The final seed to make it in was about 9.5 games back. 3 and 4 seeds were tied with each other. The 2 seed was only 2 games back. The 3 and 4 seed were 1.5 game back from the 2 seed. So a lot of competition in this league. Things swung wildly, and Mitch went from out of the playoffs to now the number 2 seed. So Bethany's super team and Mitchell got a bye in week 1. So let's now see how week 2 played out, because we are in the final four, or sorry, let's see how week 1 played out before we go into where we're at right now, which is the final four. So the LGI squad took on Ralph's remarkable team. That was the number 4 versus number 5 matchup. LGI squad, our friend Nam took that one. And then our friend Weiss, who never bothered to change his team name from the default, took on Who Wants to Sex Matumbo. That was the number 3 versus number 6 seed, and Weiss came out on top of that one. So right now in the semifinal, we have Bethany's super team versus the LGI squad. We're filming as of Monday, so don't look too much into the current score that's happening right now. There's even some games that have not tipped off yet, so a lot's going to change during the week. And on the other side of the semifinal, we have Mitchell's team versus his team's name is Fat Zion versus our friend Weiss. Mitchell, you had a pretty good Cinderella run at the end of the season, going from out of the playoffs to one of the teams with a first round bye. Who on your team would you kind of credit for this run, and how are you feeling about your status right now in the semifinals?
Yeah, so before I think since the previous recording, I believe I was the 10th seed. And since then, I went on a miraculous 10-1-1 run over the last 12 weeks of the season. So I tied with Bethany, and then I lost to LGI Squad. And looking at the top half of the bracket, that's what I would consider the death bracket, kind of like the Western Conference, in my opinion, had a lot more of the top heavy teams in terms of star power. I was blessed on being on the bottom half of the bracket. I was hoping to play Who Wants to Sex Matumbo just because he lost Victor Wembanyama. He lost, I believe, Kyrie Irving for the season, and he might have had De'Aaron Fox. I wasn't sure, so I was hoping he would squeak out the win. But then here I am in the semifinals against Weiss. But in terms of answering your second question, Andrew, I'd like to contribute that a lot to James Harden. He's been very durable late, and you know because you have James Harden in the Angle Dynasty League, he's been on a killer tear, um, averaging a great amount of assists. His uptick in scoring has been very impressive for me, making me competitive in points. So looking back a bit into my season, I traded away Bam Adebayo to your brother Phil for Joel Embiid. So I'm losing a huge piece of my contributing core, and James Harden and Kevin Durant have really picked up the slack in terms of star power. I did lose. I tried to do it like a little stash, Andrew, as you may know, if you have a bye week, you can kind of plan ahead. I tried to stash Lonzo and Jeremy Grant in hopes that they could be extra pieces of ammo that I could sub in and out from the injury reserve. Unfortunately, both are nowhere near returning, so it was kind of um, a lost cause in that realm. But in terms of everything all together, James Harden, KD, OG Anunoby has really picked up the slack with Jalen Brunson out. And I like to say Jamal Murray has really picked it up since the All-Star break. So yeah, that's a little bit of background of my team. I'm not too sure how I'm going to do, honestly, in the semifinals against Nam's top-notch team. If you can see here, he has a really well-balanced team with Cade honestly having a all NBA type season. Miles McBride is boosted with Jalen Brunson out, and I'm hit with some short-term injuries with Kelly Oubre, Jamal Murray, and hopefully Tamani Kamara plays, but it's not a given. So it's honestly not looking too hot for me right now, but hopefully with some games coming back, we'll see. So Andrew, from an outside perspective, do you have any favorites in the remaining four teams?
Well, on your side, looking at this matchup right now, Weiss did just lose Trey Murphy, so that's going to hurt for him on his side. Um, I, I mean, it does suck not having Murray today, but it's still, like I said, it's Monday and there is still a few games that haven't even tipped off yet. So there's so much time for this to change right here. But I think, like you mentioned earlier, you probably are really happy that the other side of the bracket is forcing Bethany and Nam to play each other. That's really what you want to see happen because, like you mentioned, those are probably two of the scarier teams that you would really have to come across in a matchup like this one. And with that being said, let's take a look at their matchup right here. So Bethany, she finished as the first seed, but Nam, our friend from his teammate LGI squad, he finished only 3.5 games back from her. So this is a really close matchup here. That whole top four right there was very close to each other. So Nam's side, Kobe White, Quentin Grimes, who's been on an absolute tear. That's basically the Mavs' best player right now. CJ McCollum, Ant. He's got Jaren Jackson Jr. healthy again. Klingen's minutes will probably uptick late in the season. Norman Powell is finally back. We'll see on Donovan Mitchell. The Cavs have been kind of, getting guys in and out of the lineup. And I've kind of been noticing that happening with Mitchell a little bit lately. And on the other side for Bethany's team, she's got Devin Booker, Benedict Mathurin, Terry Rozier, who I'm kind of surprised is still rostered right now. Larry Markkinen, that's always a risk with the Jazz, but she does have Denny Avdia and Jabari Smith, who have both been on good runs. Jakob Poeltl is out today. She does have DeMar DeRozan, Jaden McDaniels, Miles Turner. Oh, she's got Shea too. Shea and Cam Johnson. And I know as a Cam Johnson owner in Dynasty that he plays on all of the low volume days this week, which is good. And having Shea is always good too. The Thunder don't have a 4-game week this week, but they do have a 3-game week. So it's not bad. At least she's not getting only 2 games of Shea or something along those lines. Looking like it's going to be a pretty competitive matchup between these two. Mitch, I like
Andrew,
your
can
odds
I,
a lot if you can get past Weiss. Since one of these two teams are going to have to take each other out. But we'll see. We'll see how this goes.
Andrew, before we move on to the next league, I do want to kind of add that LGI squad dropped his third round pick, Laurie Markkinen, I believe before the start of playoffs, because he's been receiving those rest, quote unquote, injuries where the Jazz got fined over the last I mean, I guess before last game when Markkinen finally suited up. But before that, he sat out the last 7 games. LGI squad, I don't necessarily remember his injury history, but he did drop him over that last week. So it could bite him in the butt with Bethany picking up Laurie, and now Laurie is now playing. So she was able to wait it out, Laurie Markkanen's rest. And now that the Jazz are being fined, he's forced to play. So a little interesting dynamic here in terms of that matchup. So we'll see what happens. But thanks, Andrew, for giving me a shot. I honestly don't see it. I don't have the star power as these two teams, but I'll give it
But you
my
got
best
James
shot.
Harden though, man. You got to believe in the beard.
My luck may be running out, but we'll see. We'll come back to this and review the year in 2 weeks, and hopefully it goes my way.
Okay, so we are back after a brief delay. Um, Mitchell and I were hoping to head over to Fantrax to discuss the other two leagues that were in this episode today, but Fantrax was down. Fantrax was down for a few hours, so it is just going to be me the rest of the way here. The first league that we were going to discuss is Industry Pickup. So about halfway through the season, we visited this league. At the time, we were in first, and we ended finishing the season in first place. This is the team that was spearheaded by both Nikola Jokic and Victor Wembanyama. Unfortunately, we lost Wemby, but there's some other pretty good, silly season streaming guys that we've got in that are really making up the difference. So we ended up at first place. Josh and Evan, the one half of Point Made, took second place. Kingy in third place. Josh Lloyd in fourth place. Jorah Badalota in fifth place, and Karan Talwar in sixth place. So let's take a look at the playoffs bracket here. So ourselves, as well as Josh and Evan at Point Made, got a first round bye. So that matched up Joel Bartolota and Josh Lloyd, as well as Karan Talwar and Kingy. And both of the Aussies lost in round one, unfortunately. So Joel Bartolota moved on 6-3, and Karan Talwar moved on 5-4. So that brought us to the round two matchup, which was last week. We're filming on Monday, the 17th currently. We took on Joel Bartolota, and Karan Tawar took on Josh and Evan from Point Made. So we won that one 6-3. It was very close until the final day. Joel easily could have won it. So that was a very fun, very heavy strategy-based matchup. And then Josh and Evan took down Karan 7-2. So that is bringing us to the final game, the number 1 seed versus number 2 seed. Us here at Angle taking on Josh and Evan at Point Made. We've had Josh on the podcast before. Great dude. So best of luck to them in this matchup. I believe this might also be their first year in Industry Pickup, in addition to, of course, us here. It's for sure our first year. So just to be in a championship game in general is a huge honor for us. And, in fantasy, the way the payouts work, obviously, if you make that championship game, you get a pretty good payout no matter what. But of course, taking home the win means a lot to us too. So we'll update you guys at the end of the week to see how this one goes. But let's move on now to the main topic of conversation from today, which is the Angle Dynasty League. So we already discussed how the regular season ended, and we began talking about the first round of playoffs in the last video that we did. So in the last video that we did, it was during round one. I believe it was on like Tuesday. We were joined by Adrian to discuss the first round here. And some matchups shifted pretty wildly. So going back, Blackwater Boston ended up beating the Brisbane Bullets 6-3. I pulled the biggest jinx job of all time on Adrian. I'm so sorry, dude. He was comfortably leading when we were discussing this on Tuesday of last week, or no, the week prior, actually. And Mark, the Houston Comets had a ton of injuries. It seemed like it was going to be easy for Adrian, and Mark ended up winning that one 5-4. Las Vegas Aces with the upset over a pretty favored seed, winning 7-2. The Chicago Bulls doing the same thing, upsetting a very high-ranked seed, 7-2. And then I jokingly talked about Braxton being a first-round exit so many times that unfortunately it happened. Our friend Colby and Close Roads took down the number 2 seed 5-4. I took down the Dallas Mavericks. I believe it ended up being 4-4-1 or 5-4. So if it was 4-4-1, I would have moved ahead on tiebreaker. Same thing happened with the Kanazawa Sawais and the Mexico City Capitanes. So the Cinderella stories of the Samurais unfortunately stopped in the first round. He did end up tying with Mexico City, but the tiebreaker of highest seed moved on to the Capitanes. And then the Syracuse Nationals took down the Singapore Slingers. So let's move on to round 2 here. Houston Comets and Blackwater Bossing, the number 1 seed, remaining strong here. He took down Houston 7-2, and now the matchup of the two, mid to low seeds that took down some pretty high-ranked teams, the Las Vegas Aces and the Chicago Bulls. Case and his Aces ended up moving on in this round. I took on Colossus Rhodes, and Kobe, I feel you, man. There was a ton of injuries on your team, so it was pretty easy on my side. I wish that one could have been more competitive, but that's just, the nature of how these head-to-head fantasy matchups goes. And then on the last day, the Syracuse Nationals squeezes past the Mexico City Capitanes. So for standing wise, for these final 4 remaining teams, it's the number 1 seed, the number 7 seed, the number, I think, 11 seed, I want to say too. Let's go check that for sure. Yeah, the number 11 seed and the number 13 seed. So pretty good variance of seeds that made it into the end here. So for this final 4 that we are currently in, it is Monday, so we've only gotten 1 day of play that's happened. That's it. The Las Vegas Aces and Blackwater Bossing are currently tied. And then myself, Real Madrid Baloncesto, and the Syracuse Nationals, I hold a very, very slim 5-4 lead after Desmond Bain went off on a 40 bomb against me. So that is how things look in the Angle Dynasty League right now. Sorry we weren't able to get Mitch to join in on this one, but of course, in typical Fantrax fashion, they didn't feel like cooperating on an important day of playoffs for us. But luckily, it's back online. I know they got kind of a small team there, so I definitely feel for them too, on the other hand. But yeah, sucks that this happened during playoffs, but what can you do? So at least it's back online now. We were able to give you guys some visuals here of what's going on, and we will visit back during the championship round to see how that goes. Best of luck to the other teams, and we're at our final 4 here. So if you stay subscribed to the YouTube channel, if you are not already, you will see updates on how this goes. Follow us on Twitter. Check out our website, anglefantasybasketball.wordpress.com, and we will see you guys next time.